Hi, I'm Anna.
And I'm Vivian.
We're a mother-daughter duo who have been on a very specific journey for the last 28 years, and now it's time to bring you into the conversation. Welcome to the Pain Project podcast, where we will tackle the complexities and the challenges of living with chronic pain. Our goal is to see pain unmasked and stories unleashed. Thank you for joining us. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to episode 4 of the Pain Project podcast. We are here sitting on a couch, relaxing, chilling out together, and we wanted to talk about a couple of things. Some phrases, some words that may have one meaning to some people, but have an entirely different meaning to people who deal with chronic pain. So words like #blessed, wellness, abundant life. Another one, like a phrase being, like, I don't want to survive. I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive. And realizing, those types of things, those types of words, they really have a lot of really good intention behind them, right? Like, and for your average able-bodied person, that makes sense. Like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I want to be blessed. I want to thrive and have, wellness in my life. But for somebody who's not well or deals with chronic pain, what does that mean for us? Are we not
Blessed.
Are we not blessed? So that's what we're going to talk about today, is wellness and being blessed and abundance in life.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, we're not giving new definitions to them, but we are redefining how we can use those words in our own lives, so that we don't have to go, well, I'm not blessed because I'm not healthy.
Yeah.
Or I'm not, I can't thrive
Right.
in feeling poorly.
Yeah.
Things like that. So definitely, yeah, I think I want it for me. I mean, I've spent a lifetime redefining words and trying to figure out what does being blessed mean.
Right.
Years ago, during my years of infertility, I would have very well-intentioned people tell me, especially people who didn't know me and didn't know that I couldn't get pregnant again, would say, you need to have more kids. Kids are a blessing. Children are a blessing. Bible says, children are a blessing.
That's what God wants for
That's
you.
what God wants for you. Even through infertility treatments and things like that, I had a lot of people, again, well-intentioned people, say, God wants you to have children. God wants you to have more children. He wants to bless you, and children are a blessing. And I agree with that.
Yeah, of course.
I love my kids.
Of course. Yeah.
But when you're suffering in the middle of something,
yeah,
like infertility, where you cannot get pregnant and you're young and you're supposed to, and you're not, and you have people telling you that you're not, but you should be,
right,
and that God wants to bless you.
Yeah,
it's fair. I mean, I don't even have an answer to that other than to say that is very confusing.
It is. Well, yeah, you're sitting there, it's like, yeah, okay, I want that. You wanted kids, or if it's, for healing, I've heard that for myself, that God wants you to be healed.
Yeah.
God wants you to
He does not want you to be sick.
God doesn't want you to be sick. And then it's like, okay,
so I'm in the wrong place.
But I am sick. And for you, you're like, yeah, that's great. God wants me to have kids. I want to have kids. Where's the disconnect? Where's the miscommunication?
Right. What am I missing? What am I doing wrong?
And it's like, if I'm supposed to be blessed, if I'm supposed to, be well, and I want that, and I'm doing whatever I can to get that, and God wants that for me, then why in the world am I not?
Yeah. And for me, the automatic response was, I am doing something wrong. God is not wanting to bless me because I am not doing it right.
Right.
Whatever it is, living right,
taking the wrong medications,
or taking medications at all,
right.
or I mean, there's so many aspects to, if you feel like God's not blessing you, and then that search for, how do I get God to bless me?
Right.
Takes away, if we're going to talk about God right now, that takes away that ministry of presence that God has with us.
Yeah, of God being with us in our struggles and stuff like that. Yeah, and if you're saying that, I don't know, it leads you to believe that, okay, if God wants this for me and this would make me blessed, then that means that I am not blessed right now.
Correct.
So yeah, it leads you to a place of like, somewhere in my very existence, not anything I'm doing, but in my very existence, I'm outside of God's blessing. I'm outside of whatever God can do in my life.
I mean, say that again. If someone is saying to you that God wants you to be well, God wants you to have more kids, God wants to bless you, but
you're not, then that means that does that mean that you're not blessed? Does that mean that you're outside of God's blessing? Just in your very existence? Yeah. I don't know. And I would say my answer to that is no, that's wrong. We are blessed, and it doesn't have to, blessing does not equal physical wellness. And I think somewhere in our world right now, and obviously right now we're speaking about God and the spiritual world, and so this is talking about church and Christians and stuff like that. And for some reason right now in our Christian world, somewhere along the way, God's blessing and favor and presence in your life became equal to success, happiness, and health.
Good health.
Good health. Yes, specifically good health. And that if you didn't have one of those things, good health, happiness, success, then that meant that you were doing something wrong, and God wanted you to fix it so that you can get those things, as if those things are the extent of what God wants for us. And that's where I go as a Christian, is like, is that health and wellness in this life? Yes, of course I want that. But is God so small that is all that he wants for me? And that there's not
for sure
more, and that somehow if I'm not well, if I'm not feeling those things, then God's not able to take care of me then? I don't know. You're hearing the inner dialogue of people who deal with chronic pain. I mean, this is just.
And also I want to acknowledge too, and I think about this every time I post something on Facebook or social media, or we do a podcast. This topic is not easy. No. This topic is not any fun. This is not a fun topic.
Yeah.
It's not a fun topic to live. It's not a fun topic to talk about. And I could see why people would just scroll right on past our page, and, when we're talking about chronic pain.
Because it's depressing, and it's like, I don't want to, because we all want to be better. We want to help people feel better, and we want the quick fix, or we want the short, Instagram or TikTok video that's going to tell us how to do that.
Yeah. Right.
But that's not what this is.
Yeah. So and I'm not going to lie. I try them. I do the 5 steps on the TikTok that says, if you, want to feel better, do these 5 things. I try them because I want to feel better, but that they very rarely work. And I'm not
we're not wanting to
it's
be,
just more from, it's more about me and where I'm at in my life.
Sure.
It's not that I don't want it to work. That's not my answer. So if we're defining wellness, okay, let's define being blessed.
Okay.
Because if, I think, I've done just a tad research just on like the word blessed, because this has been an issue for me, obviously, for many years,
at least
25 years.
Because
it was early on that people would say that kind of things to me. And I'm gonna, can I tell a story?
Yeah, of course.
So the four of us were on a little family vacation at Great Wolf Lodge. And we were doing an activity with the kids at Great Wolf Lodge. We were doing coloring and stuff like that. And I'm in the midst of still trying to get pregnant, and I'm not doing infertility treatments, but just wanted to have more children. I'm rethinking that because maybe I'd already had a hysterectomy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that.
I actually think I had already had a hysterectomy. Anyway. Anyway, in that moment, in that setting where we were doing that family activity, there was another family in there, and you could tell they were homeschoolers. We're a homeschool family, but I don't know that you could tell. But this was definitely a homeschool family, and they were a large family. I think they had a lot of children. I don't remember exactly, but they had a lot of children. And she was a little bit older than me, and she leans across the table. Maybe we were in there for 15 minutes together.
It was not a very long time.
She leans over to me and she was like, you really need to think about having more children because they are a blessing. And, this isn't enough.
You need to have more.
You need to have more. Children are a blessing. And I'm like, this is what God gave me. I'm like, I wanted so badly. You wouldn't do that to me now. I'm probably going to have a few words because I'm a little bit spicier now than I was back then. And I always want to make people feel comfortable, and I want to be a kind person. So I was like, thank you so much.
Of course. Yes, children are a blessing.
And these are the two that I have. These are two that God gave me and the way that he gave them to me. And I didn't even explain to her. I was like, this is not even going anywhere. But it was that she had no idea who I was, didn't take a minute to figure out who I was. Not that she needed to, but told me that I wasn't blessed
with just what you had.
Just what I had. I had to have more.
Yeah. And that was how you were going to more
to experience the blessing of God. So being blessed, get a little bit passionate when I talk about stuff like this. It actually means being set apart, which is all of us. We're each individual person set apart to do the things that we're supposed to do.
I mean, as Christians, we believe that every single person is made in the image of God. And so that by definition, and with how unique every single person is, everyone is set apart and is unique and has their own special calling and their own journey. And
correct.
I mean,
and if you go into the Bible at all and read about anything Jesus said about being blessed, it has nothing to do with what we have, or what we've accomplished, or how successful we are. It has to do with being a peacemaker. It has to do with being
blessed are the what is it?
Pure in heart.
And
blessed are the poor in spirit.
Blessed are those.
These are the people who are going to inherit the earth. My mother-in-law posted this on Facebook. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because they've stood the test of time. That is a chronic pain sufferer. It's other people as well, but if you apply that to someone who suffers with chronic pain and persevering under trial, that's blessed are them, blessed are they.
Yeah.
I do actually think in our Americanized world, we do need to redefine how we use that word blessed.
Yeah.
Blessed are those who believe
and believe without seeing. Yeah.
If we never are healed and we never see another pain-free day on this earth, we are still blessed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is such an important thing for people to hear, especially obviously right now we are very specifically talking about the Christian world, and
it's damaging.
It is. That's what
I hate saying that because it hurts me, but it's damaging.
It is. I would love to, and this is a part of why we're doing this, why the Pain Project is, why we're starting this, is because we have experienced, and we know we're not alone in our experiences of being in church spaces and being hurt by this type of language. And so it's like, I feel very passionate about talking to pastors and spiritual leaders to say, hey, we need to readjust the way that we teach this topic, both the topics of pain and illness, and that covers mental health as well. And then we also need to adjust the way that we talk about what it means to be blessed by God.
Yeah.
Because we have seen the repercussions of this, of this type of language. I mean, and what it breeds in people is, quite frankly, the audacity of that woman to come up to a random stranger in a random place
who only had 2 children.
To just say, hey, you need to have more children. Like, she didn't, you said earlier, she was like, she didn't know my story, and she didn't have to. But it's like, if you're gonna come and give personal advice like that, yes, you do.
It's true. It's true.
You do need
if you're
to
gonna
know.
get, and honestly, if you're gonna give personal advice to anybody, get to know them first.
Please
befriend them, be there for them before you ever give any advice. Because we all have to assume that the people that we're talking to have a huge story in their life, and we just walked in. That woman was a passerby, or she wasn't even in my life.
And honestly, she probably, and I'm not saying this in a mean way towards you, Mom, but it's like, she probably has not thought about you since then. She probably had that thought of like, oh, let me encourage her to have more children, and then has moved on with her life, having no idea that here we are, I don't know, 15 years later.
It's been more than that, because
20 years later.
It's at least.
And you're still talking about it. Like, that was one interaction.
Yeah.
And that was a mild interaction of very low contact, like very brief, in comparison to some of the other stuff that we've seen and heard. That's so mild. But for somebody, and so this is my message to everybody, doesn't matter, chronic pain,
it doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you see somebody and you're like, man, I really have some advice for them, but you don't know their life and you don't know their story, then you better close your mouth for a second and open your heart and listen, and open your ears and listen to them before you start giving them advice. And that is, I say that to myself, to everybody, because you do not know how your words will have a lasting effect. And as people who deal with chronic pain, that is something we see on a fairly regular basis, whether we're talking to people in church world, whether you're scrolling social media and, someone does something and says, #blessed, or, talking about their wellness journey or whatever, like, hey, I felt this way, and then I tried this product and it made me well again, so here, you should try it too. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
And talking about that word wellness, when I know for myself in suffering with chronic pain, and all the things I've dealt with in my life, I've had to redefine the word wellness. And I'm actively doing that right now. I'm actively doing that in my life right now because I have pretended that I was well. I have faked that I was well to survive.
Yeah.
And I actually can't do that anymore. Like, this is brand new for me. So I can't pretend. And I am learning how to define the word wellness or what wellness means to me. So I'm still working it out. But when I think about wellness for myself, I'm thinking about the things that I need to do to move forward.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Yesterday it was not getting out of bed. It wasn't getting out of bed. I would normally say, just get out of bed. And yesterday, that wasn't the thing. Yesterday, it was not the thing. I stayed in bed a long time, or I'd move to the couch. When you suffer with chronic pain or chronic illness of any kind, you kind of get in a groove. And I know for me, I know how to maintain. I know how to, okay, don't eat that.
Yeah.
If I can get some sleep, and if there's these things that I know that I can do, that I can maintain and feel pretty okay.
Yeah.
Still in pain, but I'm maintaining.
Yeah.
But it takes one thing to mess up that balance, that rhythm. One thing, a new symptom, for me, it was my hormone is off. Why? I have no idea. Just all of us. It was fine. I was fine. And then I wasn't.
Yeah.
And then I got a little crick. It's not a crick.
It's something.
Pain. And it has taken me down for 1 week.
Yeah.
So as much as I would love that, just get out of bed. Yeah. Just do these things, and then I will feel better. I'll be moving forward. I'll be promoting my own personal wellness journey for the day. I'm going to say this. It's different every day.
Yeah.
That word wellness actually gets redefined for me every day. And to do it without shame and guilt, because yesterday I was able to, or, last week I was able to do all of these things. I was able to travel to Seattle and walk the beach and the locks and do all the things. And this week I cannot.
Yeah. And it's taken you
it's taken me 2 weeks to recover from that trip, and I don't regret it. I love every minute of it.
That's just that's a part of the journey of okay, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. It's going to cost this much. It's worth it. But you also then have to have grace for yourself on the tail end of it while you're recovering.
Yeah. And I'm going to admit it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because I actually forget. Yeah. I should be okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but we're not supposed to shit on ourselves.
No.
So
I can't do that.
Yeah. But so again, my recommendation for each individual person is defining wellness for themselves.
Yeah. Because it's going to look different for every person.
It's going to look different for every person. And I was just doing a little bit of research and came across this website called creakyjoints.org.
Love it.
And they're talking about self-love, self-care, and self-compassion. And they asked their readers to define wellness. And some of these are really good and very difficult. One of them, it says, wellness is when I don't hate myself or my existence. And that really hits me because I've struggled with that this week.
Yeah.
She says, I'm working on learning to love my body by treating her with her own as her own person so that I can be more compassionate to the needs of my body.
Yeah,
I think that encompasses what I'm trying to say in defining wellness.
Yeah.
Treating our bodies as their own person. And you've often said, let's not curse our bodies for failing us, but actually support our bodies and encourage our bodies.
Recognizing that our bodies are doing the best that they can, and that we're on the same team, and that it's not like, oh man, I can't do this today, my body's failed me. It's like, no, my body did all of that yesterday, and today my body's telling me that I need to rest, or today my body needs to rest, so I'm going to hold space for myself to be able to do that.
It's good. I know
it's hard.
Here's another one from the creakyjoints.org. It says, do what your body needs and discard the rest. Reach out for help. Throw the celery juice, yoga, supplements, and unsolicited BS out the window if it doesn't serve you. Disability requires you to be selfish, and that's okay.
Ooh,
I know. So good. So good. And there's
a lot. I can put I'll put a link to it in the show notes so that other people can read the rest of them too. Because this is a part of what we're trying to do as well, is just hear from other people and see.
We would love to hear from our listeners. How do you define wellness? And if you're not a chronic pain sufferer and you know one, what do they say when you're in conversations with them? And if they haven't told you, maybe ask them. And we just would love to hear. We're always learning. Always. And want to continue to grow in our understanding of ourselves as chronic pain sufferers, but also as being, now we want to open this conversation up
to other people as well. Yeah, definitely. I think, and it's the saying, throwing out everything that doesn't serve you. I think that's something that I've had to do a lot, is like, okay, I can try this thing because so-and-so said it worked, or this person, all these people says it works for them. And so I'm like, okay, let's give that a try. And then it doesn't work. I was like, okay, that's fine. This is my thought process for myself. I'm like, okay, that's just not the thing. That's just not my thing. It doesn't work for me. I'm gonna throw it out. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with anybody else. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with me.
See, and I always go, there's something wrong with me. That is always where I go. And I've had to learn, and am still learning, that there's nothing wrong with me. Just because the celery juice doesn't work, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It just means that's not the thing that's gonna fix me.
Right.
Not that there's anything, but so, and I appreciate that about you. And I think that's why we're a good team, because, you say things like that, and I'm like, I will get there. And you remind me of that too. To actually saying those things, but I'm getting there.
It takes time, and some days you have good days and sometimes you have bad days. That's just kind of the ebb and flow of living with a chronic condition, and trying to, every day is different. It's like what you said. Every day the definition changes.
And one of how we talk about pain, and we are talking about redefining blessed, using that phrase, you are blessed, or we are blessed, or I'm promoting wellness, or anything like that. Just repurposing those words for people who have chronic pain, so we don't have to reject them. We can just repurpose them to suit a chronic pain sufferer, because chronic pain doesn't go away. We don't get better. We have good days and we have bad days. And let me say this, we might have 5 really good days, and we might have 12 really bad days that follow, because we took advantage of those 5 really good days.
Because you want to live and do your life and go out and do things.
So let's talk about that, because that's that I don't just want to survive, I want to thrive.
I want to live.
I want to live. I want to thrive. And, we have defined,
we've talked about surviving and
mhm.
thriving. We posted something that was talking about what the definition of survival is, which is existing in spite of a difficult circumstance, despite an accident, or the dictionary definition has it's quite long, but it's an act of defiance to be able to continue to keep going,
which I think is in and of itself is excellent.
Yes,
that act of defiance of saying, I'm going to live and survive regardless, in spite of how I feel. Now, that doesn't mean I'm out riding bikes and walking and doing all the things, but it does mean that I am going to love my family. It does mean that I am going to do what I'm able to. And it also means that I'm not going to be hard on myself.
Right.
When I can't.
And for making the choices that you need to make
yes,
to be able to do those things.
That is surviving. And I think if we're going to add the word thrive in there, it can also promote thriving.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we're not shaming and guilting ourselves constantly for not being happier or
doing it the way that somebody else might do it, or whatever. I mean,
in comparing an able-bodied person to a not able-bodied person,
right?
And then saying, well, this is thriving,
right?
So I'm not,
right?
Because I can't do this.
Yeah, it's all about
we got to redefine that, repurpose those words.
We talked about it a little bit on our last podcast of recapturing a new narrative, and I think that falls in line with this, is redefining what it means to thrive based on our own standards rather than the standards of others, the other people in the world that the faceless others. You mentioned you told me a story about you, and you had to make a choice.
Yes. So I had a choice. I had 3 choices. So my husband and son and I Christian was in town in Dallas. And so we were going to go walking around downtown. So I had 3 choices. 1, I could walk, which is a long way, and it would be very painful for me to do all that walking, and the price I would pay would be great. So that was one choice. I could walk. My second choice was not to go, not to participate. Christian, Matt, you go do your thing. I'll stay home with the dogs, and I'm okay with that. I've learned to be okay with not being a part of everything that everybody does.
You've made that choice.
I have.
You've made both of those choices. You've gone and you have a good time, but then you also deal with the consequences of it, and then you've stayed home. You've done both of those. But today I had a
third choice this time, and that was to use a wheelchair. And my husband got one, was actually quite excited about pushing me around downtown. And I have to say that was a very difficult decision. And the internal noise that was going on in my brain for the 2 or 3 hours that we were out, was probably more than that. And him wheeling me around downtown Dallas, cross roads and in the buildings, and we went to the AT&T Discovery Center courtyard, food court to eat. And if you got to hear Matt's side of the story, he was so excited, and it made him feel so good.
No, that's really sweet.
Yeah. And even when we got back, he was like, that was fun. And I think it was fun for him because it didn't hurt me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little bumpy. There were times that I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
but overall, it was way more doable for me.
Yeah, you were able to have an experience together, and it cost you much, much less.
It cost me much less. But the things that I had to deal with in my mind while I was out, probably if I do it again, I won't, but you know, what are people thinking? I don't look like anything's wrong with me. Those kinds of things. So,
but like in that moment, you had to make a choice, and that, I mean, to me, that speaks a lot to recapturing and, you know, redefining what it means to thrive and to live your life. I mean, it's
because if I chose not to go,
which that's a fine choice.
It is a fine choice, but I would have missed out on time with our son and visiting and talking and doing the things that actually bring me joy. So for me to change my narrative and to get in a wheelchair and let my husband push me around.
Yeah, it caused you probably more mental turmoil to go through, like, okay, and I've heard this from many, many people. I mean, using a mobility aid, that's not something that I've had to do very much of for myself. But I've heard from many people who have had to use mobility aids that it can be a little bit, it's a mental game.
It is a mental game.
There's shame surrounding it, but it's like, if this inanimate object that has no moral weight one way or the other allows you to participate in activities that you want to participate in, there is no shame in using that thing. Use that thing till the sun goes down. Like, do what you got to do. And unfortunately, you know, there are stigmas around, you know, things like mobility aids, but there's a stigma around a lot of things,
right?
And people need to mind their own business.
Yes, they need to mind their own business, but also it's now in my realm of responsibility to end that stigma. I have that power. So now it's my choice to use it. And you know, one of the things Matthew said about the mobility device is a lot of people think that wheelchairs are used for people who can't walk, but in reality, it's a device used to help people who need help walking. Or it's not necessarily about
just for people who can't walk. It's so that people who struggle with walking can walk somewhere else later.
Can actually be there, can actually go to where they need to go. And it was actually a really nice wheelchair. It was actually really nice. Like over the bumps, it was
like, it had like shocks.
It had like shocks in it. So it was actually, it could have been worse, but it was not. It was a really nice wheelchair. So
and you got to have a really nice afternoon with your family. And I think that's great. I think that it's like, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect solution, but it is, it's in your deck of options to try to take some of the weight off. So it's like, some days, you know, your vitamins might help. Some days a mobility aid might be the answer. Some days sleep might be the answer, but you don't need to limit yourself on what your tools are,
but just keep them as my tools and use them as needed, and deal with the mental game that I would have.
And to say that's an act of wellness, of being able to, you know, have a good afternoon, and to, you know, like, yes, there's the mental aspect of it that you kind of have to work through, but that could be an act of wellness for you.
And my brain just jumped several spots, but you know, that the act of wellness, that defining wellness for yourself. One of the things my therapist has asked me recently is, what do you enjoy doing? What brings you joy? I don't know how to answer that question completely, but I will answer that one of the things that brings me joy is being with my family. I feel like I spent years teaching you and raising you and Christian and enjoying your childhood, that I really want to enjoy you in your adulthood. And so to make choices that would bring those moments about, to spend time with you or to spend time with Christian, those bring me joy. And so that's part of my definition of wellness.
Yeah.
Is being with you guys, being with my grandkids and my family.
Yeah.
I think it's not a do or a have, it's a being together and just enjoying each other promotes wellness in me.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, I was going to ask you, like, how do you define wellness but you just did. So that's great.
That's one of my things.
That's one of your, that's one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm working on it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy answer. And like we've said many times already in this podcast, it's not a one answer that lasts forever. It changes, because wellness for me today, like actual today, is different than it was 2 weeks ago, because I've had a really difficult pain flare, and it changes everything. Having a fibromyalgia flare, it changes everything.
It does.
And the things that are normally easy are not easy anymore. So, and then I think, is this my new normal? I mean, that is probably the worst part of chronic pain, is it's a new symptom or it's a flare, but is this my new normal? Do I now have to adjust my life to this level of pain? I'm hoping not. I'm hoping in a couple of weeks I'll be better.
Yeah, I hope so too.
You guys are getting all my raw symptoms and issues here.
Yeah.
But that's the goal. I'm doing this to be real. I am real. I'm an open book. And I'm also at the same time learning to say what I want to say and say what I'm experiencing, so that I'm not alone. And so that maybe someone else knows that they're not alone as well.
Yeah. When you voice how you're feeling, oftentimes I find that gives permission to somebody else to say the same, to say, me too.
Yeah.
And that's the hope. And so I would just say that that's our encouragement to you guys as we close out this podcast, to define wellness for yourself. What does it mean for you? Because it's going to look different from person to person, from day to day. Realize that you, by existing, by just being, you are blessed. You are set apart. You are worth the effort to stick up for yourself and to find people who will stick up for you in your journey. And the world is better off having you here. So don't give up hope. Reach out to people if you need help. We're here too. If you want to reach out, we're here. But yeah, I think that's good. I think that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for joining our conversation today. If there's something you want to add to the conversation, leave a comment, send a message, or email us at hello@thepainproject.co. If you have found this helpful or encouraging, please consider following us on social media, subscribe on YouTube, all the things. You know what to do. As always, we're so glad you're here. No matter who you are or where you're coming from, we're glad for your perspective. The table is big and there is room for everyone. Until next time.